It is 6:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. City Council of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas reserves the right to convene into executive session at any time during the course of this meeting to discuss any of the matters listed as authorized by Texas Government Code Chapter 551 with consultation with attorney. And so at this time, we will go to executive session at 6:30. Folks, we will not be long, so we'll be back soon. It is 7 o'clock and we are back from executive session. I thought it would be less than 30. I failed on that promise. I apologize. All right. With that being said, no action was taken in executive session. And the first thing we were going to do is our invocation and then our pledges. Mr. Tucker, if you could lead us in our invocation, please.
If we can bow our heads. Thank you, Lord, for giving us another opportunity to come together and work on the problems that we're confronted with. Bless us, watch over us, give us insights. Let us do your will. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, will you do our pledges for us? I can always tell when the Kippets and the Londons are in the crowd because they will definitely cheer out the God Bless Texas. Always appreciative. First thing we have tonight is, well, if you'll indulge me for a second, I don't recall if y'all, or I recall, but y'all may not recall the reason I said we were going to wear these shirts tonight on the dais is to wear and honor and recognize one of our members of our community who has cancer. So I asked us to be in those tonight, and I appreciate the support. And, you know, if you can do the continued prayers for our member in our community, and honestly, anyone who is facing troubles with cancer. I mean, Paul Day's a survivor. Sherry London, there's so many, so it's something we should just always think about, and to be able to give back something to one of our community members. I'm very humbled and honored to see everybody up here tonight wearing this. Thank you. So that wasn't on the agenda, but I recognized it anyway. So we have a proclamation. If Mr. Jeff Skinner can come on down, please, sir. Portholes, yes. All right, proclamation. Whereas, since its inception in 1947, the Toys for Tots program has been dedicated to collecting and distributing toys to underprivileged children throughout the United States. Founded by Major Bill Hendricks and a group of United States Marine Corps reservists in Los Angeles, the program began by collecting and distributing 5,000 toys to local children in its inaugural year. In 1948, the campaign expanded to a national scale. Each year, Toys for Tots raises awareness, collects toys, and solicits monetary donations to ensure that no child goes without on Christmas morning. Whereas the Chief Warrant Officer 2, James W. Randolph, Marine Corps League Detachment, 1465, has been successfully operating the Toys for Tots campaign in Rockwall County since 2018 with the support of the community and the dedicated Marines of the Chief Warrant Officer 2, James W. Randolph, Marine Corps League. The Toys for Tots initiative has experienced significant growth, both in the number of children served and in the overall awareness of the program. This is an ongoing campaign each year for 3 months every year. Whereas the Rockwall Toys for Tots campaign significantly contributes to enhancing the well-being of our nation's most valuable assets, our children. By collaborating with local businesses, community members, and programs within the Rockwall Independent School District, the Toys for Tots initiative unites the Rockwall County community with a singular mission to raise awareness for those in need and ensure that no child goes without on Christmas Day. Now, therefore, today, we, the city of McLendon-Chisholm, will hereby proclaim October 1st, 2024, as Toys for Tots Day. The witness thereof, Mayor Brian McNeil. Dennis London, when you do Toys for Tots, would you come and join us for a picture? I can get one more, and then after Dennis, I'd love the council, because we're going to put a box up here and support this. So after we do this picture with Dennis, would y'all be willing to join us up here? Well, This was the start of the Toys for Tots in this county. Council members.
Do you need me?
Yeah, come on. You started this whole process. Everyone suck in together. All right. And if you'd like to go to the house and take a note.
I know how this thing feeds back, so I'll make this quick. Thank you, Mayor, council members, and everybody here tonight. My name is Jeff Skinner, and I'm officially the coordinator for Toys for Tots, but that title means nothing because at the end of the day, all of this is really not about me, you guys, anybody sitting here. It's about the children. And it's a prime example of what true teamwork is all about, because without the community support, the support of the cities, the support of my wife, who gives me the hours upon hours upon hours away from home to do this kind of thing. It's a collective effort in Rockwall County. And everything that we do for the Rockwall Toys for Tots program stays in Rockwall. So I want to make sure that I put that on record, because there's a lot of questions floating around in this town that do we do what we do and send everything away? That's not the case. Everything we do stays here in Rockwall. So when you guys support this initiative, you're supporting the children that go to school from kindergarten to 12th grade in our county. So for 77 years, this program's been taking place all across the United States, and I stand here fully committed to the citizens in McLendon-Chisholm, Rockwall, Heath, Fate, and the county itself to earn the title every day. And that's what we say as Marines, we earn the title every day. So it's my commitment to you, with my team, to the county, to the court, my wife, my kids, and everybody here, that we will earn the title every day, and we will make sure that no kid goes left without in this town. So thank you guys very much for this.
Jeff, thank you so much. It's amazing. The Marine Corps League supports this program. There are members here from the American Legion who are also big supporters of it. Thank you all for being here as well. And I've been a part of Toys for Tots myself since, not to age myself, since 1996. I have done Toys for Tots and have helped raise almost $1 million on my own with the campaigns that I've done since that time. So it is amazing, and Jeff is correct. The toys stay in the county in which it's done, but I will always argue, and I have always said as a coordinator for Toys for Tots for DFW, is I also don't care if the toy goes to a kid in Kansas City. If that kid's going to not have Christmas because we failed to send a toy, I'm going to send a toy. Last year, no, 2 years ago, I believe Dennis didn't, our DFW sent 80,000 toys to 5 different cities because we had so many left over to do it. So thanks, Jeff, for being here. American Legion. I'm sorry. Oh, it was 80,000. It was 80,000 toys because it was 80 pallets from Hasbro. Yep. So that is, see, Math for Marines paid off. All right, I'll stop now. Thanks, Jeff. So rules of decorum, we're just, we got to be kind to one another. And so with that said, we're going to go into citizens' comments. We have a few tonight, so keep it at 3 minutes. I believe the timer will be kept by the staff. If you feel like you're going to be in the thought of closing out, I'll give you a few seconds, but we want to make sure we're good. So with that, David Black, you are first, sir.
Name's David Black. I'm at 1419 Sienna Lane in McLendon-Chisholm and Sonoma Verde. This is not on the agenda tonight. It's on water. I think there's something about the water issue here. Canceling the Sonoma Verde water contract with RCH seems counterproductive, although it could be good if the city uses the 60 days prior to termination in order to renegotiate the contract in a constructive manner for all parties. So maybe make a good thing out of it. The RCH timeline is years less than the plan that the city presented to the PUCT as part of the prior administration's failed attempt to obtain a CCN. So that's all we have, and that was a 5-year plan, just to get water to Sonoma Verde. But could have been changes in the last 10 months because it was recently submitted. The notice letter, cancellation of the Sonoma Verde water contract, and the injunction on RCH are not the way to get water to the citizens in a reasonable time frame. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Next up is Mr. Donald Goodwin.
Sweet. This was my first council meeting. So, thank you guys for getting me off the bench and getting me down here. Councilman Tucker, today, Easter. London couldn't be here. I believe you guys were elected to represent us. And I think you guys really missed the boat last week. I live in Sonoma Verde. I really think you guys missed the boat. You guys have an appearance of ignoring your constituents right now. It's not good. So just want to throw that out to you. We all had a meeting at Sonoma Verde last week. I'm not very happy with you four. I want to talk about RTH. There was a lot of protecting Sonoma Verde. I have a hard time taking protection. Number one, from the government. I don't need your protection. Thank you. Number two, from people that voted to try to take over RTH. I'm sure you're really looking out for us. Sure you are. This negative rhetoric and narrative around RCH needs to stop. We don't want it. It needs to stop. It's costing us on both sides. I just want to live. I just want to take care of my kids. I want to work. I enjoy my job. I enjoy my kids. I don't want to be down here talking to you guys. But now, I get to pay lawyer fees for RCH and for you guys. Because ultimately, the costs filter down to me and everyone else here from Sonoma Verde and McLendon-Chisholm. What were you guys thinking? I work in finance. What RCH is doing is normal. Using contracts to prove revenue? Like, come on, guys. Come on. I'm just going to wrap it up with this. Some of you ran unopposed. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Cheryl London.
Sherry London, 216 Harvest Ridge Drive. And first of all, let me be clear that these remarks are aimed at Councilman Day, Tucker, Easter, and McLendon. Last May, I thought the voters had made it abundantly clear which way they wanted the city to go. As the sign states, for those of you in the back, 80.14% of the voters said, enough. Enough of the backdoor deals with developers. Enough of keeping people in the dark about the hidden agenda and then pushing that agenda without discussing or disclosing the cost. Standing here today, we still don't know the full cost of the engineering studies and legal expenses from last year's failed takeover. Through this entire water fiasco, we keep getting told the city must control its water to control development. If you ask me, developers are controlling our water. The records I've recently been reviewing tell quite a story, but that's a tale for another day. Today, I'm here to remind you, in case you've forgotten, the actions you take up there as city council affect the people you serve. Your actions affect our wallets. Any other year, I'd be here talking about the city budget and the tax increase you're about to pass. But right now, water is at the top of my mind. When you called that meeting, I was out of town, off social media, and when that meeting started, my plane was landing. I got here just as you went into executive session. The people who showed up here made up their own minds to be here. I listened right along with them as you four tried to justify the actions we knew you would take because you'd called the meeting. You tried to explain that you were protecting Sonoma Verde. You tried to say you were keeping the city's options open, but you never once discussed the cost to Sonoma Verde residents. Not for the piping to change the system, not for the new tower they'd need, not even the cost to change the PID bonds, however that works. Not one of those costs were discussed. You didn't even discuss when there would be a viable option for another provider or what would happen to their water supply after 60 days. RCH customers living inside the city are once again paying for both sides of yet another legal battle when we don't even know what the first one cost us. And those living outside the city literally have no voice outside of public comments and petitions. The actions you took last Tuesday were utter disregard for the things that matter most to the people whose God-given rights all governments were formed to protect. I understand that backlash may have surprised you, and quite frankly, that surprises me. We're living with unprecedented inflation. The cost of everything is going up, including our taxes. Why would Sonoma Verde residents want to pay more for a resource they currently have? I've been encouraged by the amazingly swift progress RCH has made towards securing our future despite every obstacle this city has thrown their way. I urge the members of the City Council who voted for this mess to walk it back. The city needs to stop running interference with our water companies, all of them. Let RCH get on with its business.
Thank you, Sherry. Tim Richards.
Tim Richards, 1808 Navarre Way. Good evening. I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts. Unfortunately, this is probably the first time I've ever spoke at a city council meeting, and I have to tell you, I've owned several homes, and this is the first time that something in a city like this has caught my attention. A basic necessity like water is just so vital that you wouldn't even think to have to discuss some of the things that are being discussed. It's really, first of all, I'm very disappointed, I think more than anything, that what I'm seeing is a lot of silos, where it seems like not everybody's working together to the common goal of serving this community, and I don't understand it. I'm very frustrated. I don't understand why people aren't talking about meetings and letting people know, especially the mayor, who we elected. Obviously, we were looking for a turn like the signs are talking about, and y'all are still on your same path that you've been since whoever took over before you. It's unnecessary, and it needs to stop immediately. And I don't understand it. I don't really need to, because at the end of the day, it's a basic necessity that y'all need to find the simple way to solve this problem. And I know it's there. And legal remedy is one way to do it when all things have been exhausted, and that hasn't been made clear to me here. And I don't think it's been made clear to the people that live here in McLendon-Chisholm. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Lorna Kippett.
Lorna Kippett, 31 Fireside Drive. I'm not talking about water. I'm talking about item 9.4. I would urge council and mayor to pull this item from the consent agenda so that we can all hear the discussion. There are 3 roads in Glen Acres: Briar Glen Lane, Meadow Drive, and Glen Acres Drive. Please clarify if only one road is potentially going to be evaluated. I see this as an immediate precedence for subdivisions that have not adequately taken care of their roads to come to the city for a bailout. Neighborhoods and citizens that live in Chisholm Crossing, Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 4, Austin Corners, Green Hollow, Kingsbridge, Kensington, Quail Creek have all kept up their own roads to standards for decades to accommodate public safety and other services. These taxpayers have paid HOA dues as well to set aside funds for this very reason. I personally don't think it's appropriate for the city to take on this monetary burden, even though it's only up to $5,000. But as we know, $5,000 is $5,000, and it's all about the precedents. I'm also very interested to understand how a PID would be put in place to fix and maintain the roads in this community. Has the administrator, the mayor, council looked into the mechanics of how a PID would be operationalized? For example, a PID is an annual assessment, so I don't understand how there would be available funds at the onset to fix this road. Why pay for a study if we don't even know if a PID is feasible or viable for these 39 homes? If council wants to pursue turning our privately funded roads into public roads, there should be standards and procedures for that transition. I know that residents of the 39 Glen Acres homes have been seeking a solution for this for many, many years. But if Glen Acres residents can't hustle up $5K to get an engineering assessment done, I'm not sure how I, as the taxpayer, want to help pay for that $5,000. Our community just paid $26,000 for some minor road repairs. This cost is going to be astronomical, but I'm not sure using funds to do an engineering study, using city funds to do an engineering study before we even know if a PID is a viable option is a good use of our money. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Lorna. Bob Faddick.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and the council members. My comments tonight are directed at the four members who I felt made a very bad decision in the special council meeting last week. Your actions before the meeting and your vote resulting in 4-1 to terminate RCH water supply for Sonoma Verde during your 9/17/24 meeting. There was no revelation about a viable alternative water supply, only assertions that the council was protecting Sonoma Verde residents and keeping the city's options open. Your actions clearly are a breach of contract with RCH. As the contract states, they're obligated to mediation. Your actions only serve to slow the progress that have been made recently and clearly are not in the best interest of Sonoma Verde or the rest of McLendon-Chisholm. Now that you have a week to think about this, I think and I hope you will undo the actions you did last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Kathy Zorn.
Kathy Lynette Zorn, 1509 Via Toscana Lane. And I'm here to speak about the water issue. And I really, really hate speaking in public. So it's kind of a testament to how upset and disturbed I am that I can even make myself come up here and speak about this. The actions last week of the four councilmen who are trying to interfere with our water again, it has me losing sleep. I just don't understand why it has to be like this. I want to go on record as opposing the measure that was taken to break the contract with RCH to provide the water to Sonoma Verde. You know, I've been with RCH through a lot of the bad times, when there wasn't very much water, when we had no water some mornings when we woke up. And now I feel like they're going in the right direction, and I want to be able to celebrate that direct connection with the rest of the city. I don't want the city coming in and trying to interfere with my water again. And while I don't think everything is perfect with RCH, they're giving us a plan. And the city, this is the second time that I feel like the city has came in and like we're just supposed to be, you know, have faith that y'all have some sort of plan that you're not presenting to us. And water, I mean, it's a necessity for our survival. And to me, common sense just says, if you're trying to take this away from us, and you're even saying that it's for our protection or whatever, why would you not tell us how you're going to give it back to us, not just take it away from us. So,
Thank you, Kathy. Tom Ritz.
So you know where I stand, just so this actually gets shown in the minutes. I'm Tom Ritz. I'm a gadfly. I guess I want to address the four of you. How does it feel to have over 1,000 people angry at you because what have you done? At best, you're putting back RCH from giving us water for maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 years. I don't like the idea of my foundation coming apart, my fences falling down, and my grass turning brown. So I think your actions were inexcusable. You are doing not what you were elected to do. You were elected to do what the people of the city want. You're certainly not doing it because you're impeding us from getting water. For those of us who get water from RCH and live in the city, we're paying both sides of it. How about poor Sonoma Verde? They're going to have to pay $5.3 million in order to get a new water supplier. Now, why is all this happening? Well, I had brain surgery when I moved here after 4 months. And my daughter tells me, Dad, you've lost a lot of your normal filters. Well, yeah, I have, besides some physical things. So I was going to say, the problem is the Balcom virus, but I'm not supposed to say that word. So I can say the Balcom actions. What is it she did? Well, I'm not going to say anything about her making it so that for a while, when I first moved here, we didn't have fire protection. We have a wonderful fire department now. Now, why did she do it? Well, I don't know exactly why, but I do know some other things. She blacked out just about everything, all the restrictions that the city would have to put on a developer. In fact, there was just a court case for Zip where that got zinged.
Tom, we're at the time, good sir. I appreciate you, though.
Yeah, well. Rescind your votes, guys. Or get recall. Well, we can't recall you, darn it. Not until we become a regular home rule city.
Thank you, Tom. Dennis London.
Dennis London, 216 Harvest Ridge Drive. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and citizens. I'm here tonight not just frustrated and disappointed, but I'm confused. And I could say ditto to most everything that was said here. But I thought the voters in McLendon-Chisholm made it pretty clear during the last election where over 80% voted against any decisions that were reckless in nature towards our water. So why would anybody want to go down that road again? You're either elected or appointed to represent the will of the people. The council, it's not a monarchy. It's not a dictatorship where you can ignore the will of the people. And I hope none of you think it's an oligarchy where you can only serve the interests of a select few. You see, if we ran a business making these types of decisions, we'd be out of business. We'd have no customers, we'd have no vendors, we'd have no partners. The city is one major catastrophe away from bankruptcy. And yet, instead of safeguarding our future, 4 members made the decision to drag us into a legal battle that even if we won, would have serious financial consequences, especially the residents residing in Sonoma Verde. So who's leading it? Who's pulling the strings? I mean, last week's vote to terminate the agreement with RCH, it's beyond absurd. RCH was simply following a normal and responsible financing practice, just using future revenues as collateral for a loan. This is standard in their industry. It happens all the time. Yet nobody gave an explanation that made any sense. So we're left to guess at whatever the motives were. Now, my guess is because it blocks the city's ability for a future attempt at a 13.2.55. That, again, is my guess. But worse than the lack of an explanation that makes any sense is that the vote shows zero regard for the financial burden that you're willing to place on the backs of us, the citizens. Let me remind you, the city has no money of its own. We're the ones who get to pay for the consequences of all the actions. And in this instance, we pay for both sides of the legal battle along with whatever the outcome is. So there's no winning in this for us, the taxpayers, and RCH customers. It is a lose-lose proposition. We're playing games with our water and our wallets, and this needs to stop. It's time to reverse course on this vote. And you know the expression, you can't unring a bell? Guess what? This is an exception to that. You can unring this one. It may not be on tonight's agenda, but you know how to make a special call for a special session. And frankly, if you can't manage to listen to what everyone here is saying, then I highly suggest you consider putting your resignation on the mayor's desk tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. So that was all the handwritten citizens' comments. I followed the same process as Judge New. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment before I close citizens' comments? Yes, ma'am. Just when you come up, if you can just state your name and address, and then when you finish, just fill out a form to give to the secretary, please.
Better? All right, everyone can hear me? My legal name is Ashley Griffith Portals, just in case it ever comes up. But you might know me as Ashley Griffith Howland on Facebook because I put your 4 faces up on Facebook so everyone could see who was making these decisions for our town. Now, I'm looking at the people here, and I am one of the younger ones because the rest of us are probably at home with our children where I really should be making sure they're in bed and bathed. But instead, I'm up here reprimanding people who should know better. I do not want to have to worry about water. This is not a game of chicken. And I have been watching you guys at the back, and some of your faces are disturbing. You look amused. You look like, I'd rather be anywhere else. And as a public figure, please do better. At least lie with your face. We're able to lie elsewhere, why not with your face? Pretend like you care what we're saying to you. Please, please, when we're finally moving in the right direction, let it move in the right direction. I'm not saying that RCH is the most wonderful thing that's ever existed. We all know that there are still problems that need to be worked on. But we finally, seemingly, we're moving in one direction as a community. And now what? Now we get to have another lawsuit, we get to have a lawsuit, and we get to drag this out. And I get to tell my kids, sorry kids, next summer you can't play with that blow-up thing that I bought you because, well, people are still messing with our water. So please do the right thing. Look at my face. Please take us seriously. We put you there. We had hope with you when you were voted on that you would do something different, that you would listen to the people. So please do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Make sure you fill out a form for the secretary before you leave, please. So with that, I will go ahead and close citizens' comments at 7:35. We will move on to consent agenda. I will accept the motion on accepting consent agenda, or if anyone sees anything that they would like to have removed for discussion. I'll take that now.
Sir, I have reviewed the agenda, and the item number 9.4, I would like to remove to the regular agenda.
I have a motion to remove 9.4. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we will move 9.4 to the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the rest of the consent agenda for approval?
I'll make a motion to accept the remaining items for approval.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Being that everything is a budget item, we will go ahead and talk about 9.4, and that is, I'll go ahead and read this one, Angela. At 9.4, consider approving engineering agreement to provide a project cost estimate for the Briar Glen Road reconstruction. Conrad, I'll start with you, and then if you want, I can also take some of that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Before I start, Mayor, just a little housekeeping, and it's just a lot of words on the page. Number 8, we sort of skipped over, and that's, we got to come back to that at some time. It's a public hearing for the tax rate.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So this engineering agreement, the city has looked at this. We've had residents come and talk to us over the years, as was mentioned in some comments of some way to help them protect their roads, or to fix their roads to protect their well-being. We had a medical call recently there, and unfortunately the lady did not make it. It's not the road's fault, but it added definite time to her to get her with emergency equipment. So looking at a health and safety, the school district won't drive the roads. Other entities won't drive the roads. They're in not good shape. Whose fault is that? It's their private roads, so the people that live there is behind that. The suggestion of a PID was brought up, and with the PID is the acronym stands for Public Improvement District. Is this a public improvement or is this a private improvement? The thought process was potentially moving the streets to public streets, bringing them to city standards, and having the residents pay for those over a PID bond. To do that, and through discussions with our FA and with our current PID advisor that we have with the Sonoma Verde PID, we've identified that and have told the residents what they have to do to decide how much the PID is going to be per resident, whether they could qualify or whether they'd be interested in participating in this PID. They'd have to know what the cost of the PID was on an annual or a monthly basis. They don't know how much it's going to cost, and so to figure that out, they needed to know to have an engineering estimate to bring it up to city standards, and then our FA and others can evaluate that and tell them this will cost each resident X. Then the next step for them was going through the PID process and getting a petition and a variety of things which we haven't really got into. I mean, we've told the residents generically what it would be, but they have to continue through that process themselves. So I know that the health and safety of our residents is paramount. That was part of it. It may not have been all of it. And we could say shame on you for allowing your roads to get this bad. And and I don't know how they got so bad. I mean, I know the natural reasons why it got so bad, but anyway, that's how we got to this point here, to potentially provide that cost And then, as was mentioned earlier too, we don't know if it's going to, I mean, it would get rolled into the PID, so it wouldn't be a city cost at all. It would just be city assisting residents of our city to better their situation. But they could say, no, we just can't make these monthly payments. Whatever would come out of this engineering estimate, they would have to decide on an individual basis, on a home-by-home basis, what, if they could afford doing that. And fortunately or unfortunately, with the PID 51% rules, so there could be 49 that say we can't do it, and then they get other means taken for their houses. But it's not even that far. It's to a point to say, can we do it or can we not do it? If we can do it and we think it's a feasible thing to help to fix our roads, then we will do it. If not, we won't do it, and we'll stop right there. And they'll have to come up with some other suggestions of how they can fix their roads. So, but I don't want to stress that all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, it happened yesterday, but it has been getting worse. They've been doing little things over the years, I guess, to blade it down and to get it more usable, but it is kind of, I would encourage you to go drive it, but I really don't encourage you to try. I mean, it's a tough situation over there and a difficult situation, but that's what sort of the background of how we got to tonight, and trying to help that. And if it was, we recognized it was for private purposes, but it would be rolled into that PID, but no guarantees. True statement, what somebody said, that if they can't do it or don't want to do it or whatever reason, the city would utilize public money to evaluate that.
Yeah, so I'll try to address some things. So anytime we help people in a government role, I mean, we have our heart in the right place. Sometimes maybe our mind's not in the right place. Possibly most of the time for me. My point with that is we have met with Glen Acres numerous times. Spoke with their HOA. Mr. Tucker's gone over there with me a couple of times where we've sat down with them. They've been here. Mr. Brewer's met with them with me. And, you know, they have come up with every solution that they were able to come up with that we asked them to, if I'm not mistaken, to give them other options that led us to this. And I think there was a comment made of the 5,000. If they can't come up with 5,000, they had to spend, I don't know the exact number, but I want to say it was like $7,000 or $8,000 for a different plat deal they had to submit to us. There were some other things that they had to spend money on to help this along as well that they did. And with that remaining amount of money, they brought in the ground stuff. I don't know what it's called, but so that their own residents could try to patch the road. To speak on the incident of the resident passing away, a 911 call came in, correct me if I get wrong on this, Chief, for a medical emergency. When the ambulance got from 205 to that street, just from that street of 205 at the beginning of, I believe that's Briar Glen, it took 8 minutes for the ambulance to get there because of the road being so bad. They loaded the patient as fast as they could because they saw it was a dire situation, but then it took them over 10 minutes to get back to 205 because now they got to go slower because there's a patient. It was so bad they couldn't get a reading to even know which hospital to go to. They didn't know if they needed to take a right or a left when they got to 205. We've reached out to the post office. The post office would love to install a box at the end of the street. The school bus will not go down the street. Meals on Wheels wanted to cancel the contract that was taking a resident food there, and we were able to talk to them, and I volunteered that if they decide to do that, to let me know, and I'll pick up the meals and take them to the lady myself. from UPS to FedEx to you name it. So we have had the HOA representatives, and I say HOA representatives, that's probably not even the correct statement, the Glen Acres representatives that they chose here at City Hall 3 times now, I believe. 3 times. And the last 2 times we've had our FA, Michael Holla has been there, the PID administrator from P3, myself, Mr. Brewer, Mr. Tucker. We have worked with them every way we could, and I think the PID administrator, if I'm wrong here on this, they said we needed to find out if they could even do a PID, right? Because apparently there's a certain amount that has to meet. So if it doesn't even meet that amount, then they are gonna have to find other options. Yes, the city would put up the 5,000 in hopes that the PID does go through and the 5,000 rolled into it. But, there is a risk there. I had a council member, I hate to steal this thunder, but I'm going to. No, I'm not. I'm going to let him have that one. It's too good for him. But there are things that the city also does for the residents that we could probably argue we don't have to do either. It's not about helping a road in a way, it's about helping our neighbors, it's about helping the people of the community. That's where I'm at on it. I've been in all the meetings, I've talked with them on the phone tirelessly, they've reached out. It's your neighbors that need help, and I get it. No one wants to pay for the next guy to them. But sometimes, that old saying, it takes a village. Sometimes let's just be the good village. Mr. Easter, I'll go to you, sir, and then we'll just work our way down the line.
Excuse me, yeah. I do want to mention also we did receive a letter from Bev Stibbins on this particular topic. I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to look at it. And I think it was very important, and I think it's generally consistent with Ms. Kippett in that, yeah, we would like to do work and try to help these neighbors, but I'm concerned about the moral hazard it creates. In that, it's unclear to me why we would put the obligation on all of the residents, McLendon-Chisholm, when the people that have the greatest impact are unwilling, for whatever reason, to resolve it as a general matter. And I don't think it's a good precedent to set up, because as soon as you do that for one entity, I think that's what Ms. Stebbins pointed out, then what's to stop it from cascading? I also think that Ms. Kippett's point of, if we're going to turn private roads into public or use public funds on them, we need to have some standards and processes in place to try to mitigate some of the negative impacts of moral hazard. But with that being said, I think on this is $5,000. I'm wondering if there's some way that we can move forward with this, but make sure that we get the money collected back from those people that have the greatest impact and the greatest benefit that will be derived from doing this. And that's kind of what just looking at it from the top down, some consideration. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Easter. Appreciate it. Mr. Brewer, you're up, sir.
Yeah, I received the email from Ms. Stevens as well, and I replied. My thinking is that the core functions of any city is public safety, followed by roads and infrastructure. What happened to that lady with the ambulance and all that just really spoke to me that there is a serious issue. And these people, for years, have been trying to figure out a way and asking for help. Now, I live in a neighborhood where we're responsible for our own roads, and several neighborhoods here are as well. And I get that. But there comes a time, and we're talking $5,000, which isn't chump change, but to me, it's a small investment in our own residents to say that we hear what you're going through, and we're going to try to help you. Very small investment. You know, when we had that storm and all that storm debris, we could have very easily said, HOAs, that's your own problem. But we didn't, because that's not the right thing to have done. We did the right thing with that. I think we're going to be doing the right thing with this. They're going to be paying for it on their own. I have a feeling that they realize that they're in a conundrum, that they have to find a way out, and we're giving them the option. If they vote no, then that's on them. We've done our best. But can we say we've done our best to this point? I don't think so. This is how we do our best. $5,000. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Mr. Day?
So I'm only kind of tangentially affiliated with this or know this stuff. I'm getting all this information from the people that talk to them. With respect to the road conditions out there, which are obviously terrible, I mean, I have a four-wheel drive and I got to drive slow down the road, so I know it's pretty nasty out there. What type of arrangement do they have with respect to an HOA, and do they have any money on deposit currently? Does anybody know? What are they doing to work on this on their end right now? Do we know?
I don't know specifically. However, they did extinguish the $7,000 on getting the plat approved. So at this point, it sounds like their funds available are pretty slight, pretty low. Hence, they came to us to ask for the $5,000.
This is the HOA you're saying?
They're not an HOA. So that's the trick. There is no HOA there. They are a neighborhood that does reach out to collect funds, but they do not have the HOA capabilities like the normal HOAs that will speak out on this. So this is why it's just a little bit different. Back to you, Mr.
Oh, actually, still to the same. So how are they organized on this? This is what I'm trying to figure out. So if you do a PID, as I've been looking at PIDs, we recently had an item on this about a month ago, and looking at the PID administrative fees, they're just astronomical, and I don't think they realize the full borrowing costs they're talking about here. We don't know what they are. I just want to have a better understanding of what it is we're looking at, and the moral hazard issue. Madam Kippett brought it up, and so did Bev Stevens a little bit earlier. These are very valid concerns, and in fact, when the dam started to fail, this issue over here on Briar Glen was brought up, and I had mentioned a resident at the time, and he said, well, if they're getting $5,000, how come we're not getting $5,000? I mean, he was talking about a repair on his bridge. That's the moral hazard he's referring to. And I'm seeing both sides of this, but I want to make sure I understand the architecture of how they're going to go through and solve the problem on their end, what they're working on. And I don't see clarity on this quite yet.
Mr. Holla?
Thanks, Mayor. So I did want to add, Councilmember Day, that to the first part of questions you were asking, how are they set up, how are they organized? Well, it's a mess. I'm glad EMS is here and nobody else is standing up, because we may need them. What I'm about to say is the developer at the time didn't treat them like they were supposed to, didn't do what they were supposed to, didn't set up what they were supposed to set up. So if anybody needs the oxygen, now's the time on that, because I know that's shocking to everybody. But they're through no fault of their own in terms of how it's set up and organized. That's kind of what they're paying for now. Now, as Councilmember Brewer, Councilmember Easter said, whatever they're doing, not doing now, whatever they don't do or don't do in the future, that's on them. But as far as like how it's set up, how it was organized, without the HOA and all that, the people that are there now, that's not on them. So if it helps, that is why you can't get really clear-cut answers to some of these things, because we really don't know. The people just bought the houses, they bought the houses. Oh, okay, we're doing what we're supposed to do. If you pay your HOA, you pay your HOA, you get the thing. If you don't, I mean, I never really think about my HOA till I get it in the mail, and they said, hey, you know what, you're an idiot. You got to pay 12 cents more because you're late on them. So that's the only time I remember the HOA dues. So really kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I just want to stress that the origination of all this really wasn't having anything to do with it wasn't like they refused at the time to set things up. It wasn't like they were unwilling or anything like that. And I'm not advocating one way or another. Policy decision on council. If there's legal questions, I can answer those. But I know I can answer the first part of that.
So, in your opinion, Mayor, you've talked to them and you've talked to them. How good of an investment would this be onto this I don't want to take $5,000 and it could be as great as Mr. Brewer is saying, or we'd be throwing it into the toilet from what I can tell. I don't see the architecture for how this is going to work out, other than, we get this done and then it goes nowhere, we're out $5,000. I just want to make sure that the city's getting their money's worth out of it. And
I'll say something to that. From my standpoint, I think that I would amend this proposal and say that if it didn't go through and the PID wasn't formulated, that they would have to provide $5,000 back to the city. I'm a little bit hesitant about going forward on this project, though I've been involved substantially with it, and I understand the plight of these folks over there. And it's horrendous what happened to that one lady coming out of there. This is, we're supplying $5,000, and I was amenable to that at the time, to get an engineering done, to see if indeed the completion of the road, the restructuring of the road was going to qualify as under a PID. I believe that it probably won't from our PID administrator's conversation with us. That's my own reflection, because I don't think it's going to come under that threshold. But that being said, I certainly do want to help these folks, but the precedent that's being formulated here with repairing the road, I'm on the road committee, and so I can name a half dozen roads that aren't quite to this level. If you look at Edwards, you look at Smith, Klutz, all these roads are under disrepair, and so for us to set precedent and start repairing this particular road without a PID would be problematic. And I'm a little bit apprehensive, because it would be everybody else out in the community who has been responsible in taking care of their own properties. Because we have an HOA, we repair our own roads. I think Ms. Skippett said that they just recently invested $26,000 in their roads. And so we all have that responsibility in McLendon-Chisholm, because McLendon-Chisholm City does not own that many roads, and the roads that they do own are in severe disrepair at this point in time, and we haven't, in my mind, allocated the monies that we need to allocate for those particular roads to make them safe. Smith, I think it's Collie Lane over there, I believe it is. Is it Collie Lane? Connie Lane. The road's at a 45-degree angle on one side. It's barely passable. And so I just don't want the precedent, though I'm willing to help these folks by providing the $5,000. However, if the PID doesn't go through, I would ask that they pay that back to the city.
So, I agree with setting precedents, and stuff like that. I don't know maybe how that gets explained out. It is a mess. So we can't refer this as the normal HOA conversation, right? So we can't just say we want to compare it to an HOA, but you can't. It is a mess. And so what's happened, I also don't want to say that the people were irresponsible. They're trying to be as responsible as they can, but they have no enforceable action without it being an HOA. In talking, if I recall, with the PID administrator, and I can't remember who the financial, Jason, I think it's Jason is the FA on this, and Mr. Holland, and we were all in there. If I remember correctly, and Mr. Tucker, you are correct, there is a threshold of the amount that it has to meet. And I remember no one knew what that amount was going to be yet. We had an idea of what we saw a minimum, they had an idea of what they saw as a minimum one at one time, and I think they said 2.5 or something like that, but the other person said, well, it could be $1 million. No one really knew, so the whole thing was to do this analysis to even figure out if it can happen. And I personally, I have to agree with Mr. Brewer on this. Sometimes we have to do more. This is one of those cases, and maybe it does come back and bite us. Then we have to go down to respect Ms. Stevens and Ms. Kippett on their comments. It is setting a precedent, but what would that precedent be? How is that defined? Is it defined that someone passed away on that street, so you better hit that one. I mean, how do we play a precedent when we're talking about, as Mr. Brewer said, public safety? And there are roads out there. I don't know, Chief Simmons, do you have any comments that you want to make on that road, knowing how it is and you know, your fire response times and being that your medical response on that one night call? Or I don't know if it changes anybody's mood up here, but maybe the input can help.
It's always a concern when you have roads are as bad as they are. We've got a couple roads like that, but this one's pretty treacherous when it comes to taking a very large apparatus carrying 1,000 gallons of water, 3,000 gallons of water. We take a chance of damaging those vehicles. The night of the storms, responded to numerous calls back here, potential structure fires. Our response was delayed by about 8 minutes. It was 8 minutes longer to get back there because we could not get our apparatus around. We had to do the bob and weave or Frogger effect, I guess, to be able to get through there. So it is a concern that we have a roadway like that in our city that will delay response. I'm not saying that that road was the cause to this individual's death, but it did delay the medical treatment that she could have needed right away, about 8 to 10 minutes, because they had to wait to get to the roadway where they could park the ambulance, get a good read, and then be able to administer the things they needed. Unfortunately, it was too late, but again, I'm not saying that was the cause of it, but it was a delay for EMS to be able to give them or give that individual everything they need to give them a chance at life. So it is a concern when it comes to these roads, and I hear a lot of the comments, but I look at it as a public safety issue. And that's not the only road that we have, but that one has now become the worst road that we have inside of our city when it comes to private roads.
Yes, I guess when is it? How many more things happen on that road, or how many more people decide they're not going to go down that road, or I don't know. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I wish I could say this. If we approved of this $5,000 to do this analysis, it gets rolled into the PID, and we're guaranteed to have it back. And you know, we help the community, and they get a road that neighborhood pays for through the PID, if I'm correct on that, right? And the whole thing is that PID gets that road up to a standard, and then the city adopts it with, you know, hopefully just maintaining it because it would have been built correct finally. So that's where I'm at on it. And I don't know, there's other roads. If anyone else has any other comments, we can look at motions, but I would be leery on the one idea of with the amendment of it to say, pay me, set up a payment back, because that means we have to go to them and see if that's something they would, if this, see what I'm saying? That starts that time clock all over as well. And I'll follow back on what Mr. Brewer says. But Mr. Day, it looks like you have something, and then after that, we'll look at the motions.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what the entity is that we're looking at. I mean, who these guys are and how they're operating and how they're functioning to make sure that, again, we're not just throwing $5,000 into the toilet. I have no problem loaning money. That's not really an issue here, because that's effectively what you're saying is we're going to loan them $5,000 and hope and pray they would get paid back through the PID. Are there any alternative? Because it's the fundamental question. Compared to what? Right?
Yeah. So we looked at some alternatives. One of them was, until I learned a lot about how funds are supposed to be spent. I still learn up here quite often. Me and Conrad sat down because we looked at this with the chief, and it came down to the health, safety, and welfare on this particular road. And at one point, I think this was the first time when me and Mr. Tucker went over to the neighborhood, and it was like, hey, we may have a really good way to do this. It's going to cost, I'm just going to use the easy math number. It's going to cost $200,000. But being that it's going to be this, we'll meet you halfway. And I mean, we were all excited thinking, oh, we're going to fix the road for $200,000. We're going to be $100,000. And I'm glad we're only talking about $5,000, because $100,000 seems like it could have been a really hard conversation tonight. So that ideal didn't work because Mr. Holla always brings great news. And the great news was, no, you can't do that. Stop. Don't pass go. Don't collect 200. As a matter of fact, go to jail. And so that was shut down real quick. So then we just started kind of like just brainstorming a lot of different ideas. Everybody, Mr. Easter and Mr. Day, I don't think were really a part of a lot of this. It's mainly been myself, Mr. Tucker, and Mr. Brewer. And so it's just been one of those things. And I hear y'all. I understand that concern of setting a precedent, especially for people who have sat on this dais and understand how it works. So it's just a tough place to be.
So, sir, just to that
Yeah.
question, you haven't been able to conjure any type of alternative. So if this doesn't happen, they're not completely without help or a direction. What other directions would be available to them?
This was the final direction. This was it. If this does not work out, then
In repair at their expense, basically. We would just leave it as it is. The city has no investment in this. It's not a city road. And then we have no responsibility, as with all the other roads that are within HOAs or developments. So they would be left to their devices.
Wait, I got a quick question for Mr. Halla. You're kind of going over the history of this whole thing, in that there was some developer that didn't do what they were supposed to do, and so through no fault of the owners of this place, in and around there, they're finding themselves in this situation. Is that a fair characterization?
The developer let them down by not setting up the HOA. The HOA would have been, as you know, that would have been under Chapter 209 of the Property Code. It would have been a legal entity. That would have been something the city could have dealt with. The HOA would have, not only that, but the HOA would have had its own enforcement tools on the individuals who had homes in that area. Just like HOAs make people keep their driveways, in shape, their yards in shape, don't let you have certain, fences, grills, all the, obnoxious things that HOAs do because, they were picked on as kids with another HOA presidents. But they didn't have that. They didn't have that. So, and again, through no fault of their own, I end up having to take a really good look at my deed when I got my house, and they were sending me HOA dues, and I looked at it because I was like, wait, I've been here for 4 years, and they're sending me HOA dues, and it turns out after looking at it, I went to the title, and they really didn't do it correctly, and so I wasn't in the HOA because of the paperwork. So you never know what can happen and when it happened and how it happens. So that's really a huge guffaw, if you will, from the developer to not have created that HOA, that legal entity.
Can I also tell you, Councilmember Easter and members of the council, the neighborhood is 40 plus years old, so it's not like surprise. I mean, anyway.
Can they be compelled to create an HOA?
I mean, we can't. I'd have to also go look at, I would assume their CC&Rs require an HOA to be created. My guess is whoever did the development agreement, or if that's what they had way back when. I'm old, but I'm still young enough I could say that was before my time. They probably contemplated the creation of HOA. That's a typical general normal clause in agreements nowadays. So, but again, I would have to go back and look at that one.
Because you want to make sure that if you're going to give public money to something like this, it's able to take that public money, heal itself, and then grow from it, as opposed to constantly becoming a welfare situation where we're constantly having to put more money into it. It becomes a city obligation. That's one of the concerns that I have about this, because $5,000 is a relatively small sum, but again, the moral hazard issue is that this is they have not organized themselves. They don't have anything on deposit, and I don't know if they're preparing themselves to take care of this if we jump in as a partner. I'm just wanting to know if that's something that could be negotiated as part of it.
I think what the contemplation is of the creation of the PID and all that is, because it's a different type of PID. PIDs can be, there's an operation and maintenance PID, which is what this one would be, and then there's the PID you create, like, hey, you know what, I'm a developer, I came in, I want to create a subdivision, and this is what I want, this is what it looks like, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And so nothing's been created yet. So the developer is the one that takes all the assessments after the PID's been created, and it's on all the lots. Okay, this would be a bit different. What I understood from the agreements, and you know, Mr. Tucker and the mayor, then correct me if I'm, and Mr. Brewer, maybe if I think he was there for some of them, so they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understood it is that the PID was going to bring up the roads to the standards, meet city standards. Then they were going to contemplate, it was contemplated they were going to dedicate, typically, generally, normally that's by plat, but dedicate those roadways to the city. And we were going to accept them, which would have been okay because they would have been, quote unquote, up to snuff at that time. So that was kind of what I understood as the plan. And I've been debating, and I've known several of y'all for a long time, and we've had, even Mr. Brewer and I've had some very deep conversations, so I've really debated on whether or not I should say anything at all, because I don't set policy. I don't make policy decisions. My job is strictly legal. If you want to have a legal question, that's the guy I'm asked for. What should I do? That's this man right here. It's not me. But I also want to help when I can when individuals are struggling. Now, I've known several people for a long time. There's fewer people on the planet I'm more scared of than Miss Stibbins. She still makes me call her Miss Stibbins after 15 years. So I completely, and you will not find more city attorneys that are going to, as the mayor said, he agrees with me, if the city attorney is not making their council mad at least once a year, fire him or her because they're not doing their job, okay? So I completely agree with Article 3, Section 52. You do not spend city money on private individuals, okay? Having said that, my job is to present you both sides of the legal conundrum, and there is one here, and you all make that policy decision, but I've informed you. I've given you notice. So the question is, this $5,000, which I want to make sure, I've had a couple of statements, I just want to stress, make sure that this is not contemplated. If it is, it's new to me. I had no notice of this. This is not to repair any roads. There is no talk whatsoever about spending a single penny of any city money on repairing any roads. So I want to stress that. Whatever this amount is, and what I remember, it is up to 5,000, so it may not even be 5,000, okay? This is an expenditure of public funds potentially. The AG has opined ad nauseum. There are three elements, three factors, three prongs, whatever you want to call it, that they will look at. They will look at what's the public purpose, do they retain control over the monies, and three, is there a return to benefit? The single most important one, is it a public purpose? Having said that, I also need to stress that, this is where the law is beautiful, there's no definition of public purpose. Okay, isn't that wonderful? The courts are very, very, very liberal, and in this context, that word's not bad, but they're very liberal about employing what is a public purpose. The reason why is because actually some courts get it. That is a legislative decision by a legislative body, and we have three branches of government. They check each other. You don't legislate from the bench. Your job as the judge is to decide, hey, is the legislation constitutional or not? It is not to decide whether it's good legislation or bad legislation. Not the job of the judiciary. The great Supreme Court justice we ever said, Antonin Scalia, he wrote a thesis on that, okay? Almost an epistle. So I'm stressing here that the definition of public purpose, we've kind of already alluded to it several times, is public safety, okay? Chief, real fast, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I am. If there's a call down that road, are you going to answer the call, yes or no? Okay. Do I want the chief, especially at his advanced age, to be driving down that road, hit a pothole? I got to make the chief laugh a little bit. But, you know, something happens, he wrecks, the chief is hurt. We love our chief. We'll do anything for chief. We don't want the chief hurt, okay? I don't. Fair enough. I don't want the chief hurt. So there is I find it very unlikely. Again, you never know. I've seen judges do some of the craziest things, including ignore the law, quite frankly. But I find it unlikely a judge will say, you know what, public safety is not a public purpose. Okay? Again, it is totally up to this council, and I fully support not spending the taxpayer money for the benefit of a private individual or private group, but there are different ways to look at this conundrum. And if this was a situation where, Ms. Stebbins, even a penny of the city money was going to be used to repair the roads, I would be apoplectic over here, just absolutely, without a doubt, okay? And so Also, too, the added of we're contemplating taking the roads. Maybe we want to know what work it is that we're going to have to see done and how much it's going to be and what's going to be, all that. So, hey, you know what? Maybe we get an idea from that. That's why we'll spend up to, not necessarily, but up to $5,000. Again, I'm not making the decision here, but I'm saying that there are definitely, from a legal standpoint, two different ways to look at the situation. I know Ms. Tibbins is just glaring at me. I know I can actually feel my body melting. But again, the precedent, and the mayor said it, and Ms. Tibbins is right, about, hey, what are you setting a precedent? Okay, if we've got, do we ever have roads this bad that people are quite frankly dying because they can't get to them in time? If that's the standard you set, then it is like, okay, if there, excuse the French, but if there's no deaths on this road, we don't help them out. That's our standard now. So I agree. Absolutely, you're setting precedent with almost anything that you do from up there. Very concerned about it. But what you've got to remember, when you're setting precedent, you must compare apples and apples, not apples to oranges. So yes, you might be setting a precedent, but also too, what is that precedent that you're setting? It's not just bad roads. It's not just dangerous. It just might not, the chief getting a concussion because he hits a bump and, bumps. That could happen on a speed bump. Okay? So you got to make sure that what it is, what precedent that you're setting. Again, I seriously and sincerely applaud the council for considering, hey, we want to be careful and of not violating Article 3, Section 52. Amen. I agree with that, 100%. I'm simply saying that there are two ways to look at it.
What degree of control would we have over all of this?
The control's going to happen. Let me back this up. This is just an assessment. At the end of the day, it's just an assessment. A lot of these foreshadowed things are unknowns until the assessment is done. I mean, that's just the truth. If I'm wrong.
What I understand, this is our engineer assessing the roads, and you correct me if I'm wrong. What I understand, this is our engineer assessing the road, the type of repair, what it should be a different kind of substance? I don't know if that would take, samples, core samples where they actually dig in, go down. I don't know how forensic, it's going to be, but this is, bottom line, it's our engineer going out and assessing the road to see in general what needs to be done for it to come up to what our roads would have to be built by now in our subdivision ordinance.
It is not our engineer. It would be a contract outside engineer. So it's not the contracted city engineer that would be doing this.
But it would
It
be
could
under
be,
direction.
I guess. We could ask him, but.
Okay.
With respect to the expenses, it seems like we are contributing a $5,000 cost as almost like a grant into this. So the expense from the city would not to exceed 5,000, but the expenses for the engineer could go well north of that. Is that my understanding of?
No, it would be up to $5,000.
No, that's not what he's asking.
Not to exceed it's not going to go over 5,000.
No, that's not what he's asking. He's saying if the engineer is going to charge us $8,000, we're only up to $5,000. Yes.
So we're basically paying the first $5,000 is what I'm saying.
And I'm saying that the engineer's not going to charge more than $5,000.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, we put it out that says, we have $5,000. Can you do this project?
So we're bidding it out.
So it can't be
for
6 or
5,000.
7 or 8 or 10. It will be $5,000, not to exceed $5,000.
Furthermore, the question of governance with respect to the homeowners over there. Who's representing the homeowners over there? There's a PID concept coming out. Have the homeowners been consulted on this? Do they know what this, talk to me about what's going on out there. Who's
Okay, so
you guys talking to? What's going on?
I will answer you. So the people that we're working with are, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tom Milner.
It's an ad hoc committee that's formulated. That's interested participants that live in that community have come together. There's about 5 to 6 of them, maybe a half dozen. So these are just concerned citizens that are kind of leading the charge. They're leaning into this problem and having the discussion. They don't see themselves as necessarily representing everybody in the community, though I think a lot of those that do live in the community are certainly attentive to what's going on. like I said, it's ad hoc for the most part. It's not a formalized committee of any sort.
I can dive into that a little bit
Yep.
more, actually. I actually went to one of their community meetings where I would probably say maybe 35 to 40 people in the community were there. And it was pretty much all of them, from what I recall, minus about 5 or 6 homes of the normals that don't show up. The group that Mr. Tucker's talking about is the ones who are kind of doing everything. So I keep going back to, you're asking a lot of great questions. Not going to argue that, but you're asking questions that until I have an assessment to go back to them and say, here you are. They know, based off of what they've had with their, I call it just their community meeting, is they have well over 51% that are going to agree to this. That they have that. This assessment is to find out what it takes, what it costs, like Mr. Hollis said, all the beans and bullets to make it happen. And if we lay it out to them and say, here it is, this is what it's going to be, this is how it's going to cost, this is going to be your monthly assessment, so on, how long the terms are and everything else. If they say no, yeah, we spent $5,000, but you know what? I'm not going to have to hear them come back again and say, can the city help me because we offered the help, right? But if it comes back and it meets some criteria and the 5,000 is rolled back into it, we get it, and they get better roads. So no one's going to argue there's not a risk here, but there's a lot of questions that I don't know the answers to until I have the assessment to find out if it's even going to be the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to pick at this. And the main thing is I'm trying to make sure that we have, that we breathe life into these people so that there is, so I know who we're talking to, that there's, the delegates we're speaking to do in fact represent the people out there. So we could say, yes, that's fine, but still ad hoc. And what I'm saying is if we know who we're talking to, like with an HOA, we know HOA has its rules, bylaws, regulations, and so we have some standing on this. And again, I just don't want to throw $5,000 into an ad hoc committee that might turn into nothing. That's if this was an HOA, I'm much more favorable to the consideration. Does that make sense, Mr. Hollow, what I'm referring to? Could you make a comment on that?
I never needed it before. I mean, I can see it's easier to deal with another legal entity, and I would probably have a little bit more heartburn over it from that angle if we were actually doing and transacting something with the group or the HOA, but that's not what's going on. We're dealing directly with the engineer, and they're going to go with road. So that's because I completely get you. I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, we're going to give them some money. Wait, hold on. Who are we giving it to? Joe Blow? Yeah, I mean, now if Mr. Milner, we give it to him and he runs off, down to Hawaii with our money, then, or Costa Rica or wherever. Yeah, I mean, I got a problem with that. Not that Mr. Milner would. That's not defamation. It's just making a point. But so I get what you're saying, but that's not what we're doing here. So in fact, I would still feel a bit uncomfortable if it was an HOA and we were dealing directly with the entity itself. But this is not. We're dealing directly with the engineer, and apparently, Conrad's got some underneath dealings with some engineers, and they're going to do this thing for, no more than $5,000. So, that makes me feel more comfortable. So I think your questions are good, but I think it can be removed from, again, still up to council, but that one, it's less because we're not actually dealing with them specifically.
Are there any more questions or concerns? 'Cause I don't want to clear it's important. With that, then I will look at any motion on this for an approval or disapproval, whatever you choose to make the motion on.
I'll make a motion for approving the engineering agreement to provide a project cost estimate for the Briar Glen Road reconstruction.
Do I have a second?
Second.
With a second, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Opposed.
Show that 3-1 as passed. I apologize, I skipped number 8. So we will be having the public hearing to receive comments regarding levying ad valorem taxes for the tax year 2024 at a rate of .09626 per $100 assessed valuation on all taxable property within the corporate limits of the city of McLendon-Chisholm as of January 1st, 2025. The said tax rate having a maintenance and operations component and a debt service component. I will open the public hearing at 8:25. Mr. Kivett, I apologize for missing item 8 earlier on. I apologize.
It's quite all right, Mayor. Last item energized me. Mark Kippett, 31 Fireside Drive. We just spent 30 minutes or so on $5,000. I'm going to give you an opportunity to save your taxpayers $1 million. All right, I have everybody's attention. So with regard to the budget and the tax rate, I agree with the presentation that's been made. I think I've lived here for over 10 years now. The city's making steady progress forward. The efforts to fund actions this coming year, I applaud the city administrator and staff for putting those in to do some necessary housekeeping and keep us moving in the right direction. Thank you. I'm also, as the chief knows, a strong supporter of our fire department. Been working this issue for a number of years. It's absolutely essential we get them the equipment, the training, and the tools they need to do their mission. I also want to make sure that we're compensating our city staff and our firefighters so that we can help retain them into the future. Both retain them and develop them. So I agree with the budget and the tax rate. So with that said, I want to comment that Rockwall and McLendon-Chisholm is growing. The county of Rockwall grew 38% from 2010 to 2020. There's over 130,000 in the county now, and roughly 40% of the county remains undeveloped. Remind me of the number here in McLendon-Chisholm. If we count agricultural area, it's around 75%. So we've got a lot of growing to do here ourselves. Quality of life is essential. I think that's obviously well established with the county strategic plan that's being developed. However, our fire department has Fire District 22, which is a relic of an earlier era, an era when we had farms, ranches around the city. That is no longer the case. We have roughly the same number of homes and businesses in the unincorporated area in the ETJ as exists within the city. So within Fire District 22's purview, most of which is outside the city boundaries, outside the city limits, that's what the chief and his staff is covering, or firefighters are covering. The county kicks in a very small stipend. It's almost laughable. It was, I thought, $180,000 a year. I've been informed it may actually be less this year. That is derived from sales tax, which we all participate in, including anybody who visits. So, doing the math, we, the taxpayers in McLendon-Chisholm, pay for 93% of the fire department, or 100% if you throw in the sales tax, which we all contribute to. Total budget for the fire department this year is going to be $1.9 million, give or take. Total budget for the city is going to be $4.3 million, give or take. That means we carrying $2 million is what we are paying for fire, when basically half the households that are covered are paying 100% of those costs. That's how it works. Simple math. So with that said, what's that all mean? I mean, in terms of just me, that's and Lorna, that's $225 a year. I applaud Councilmember Brewer, made reference to the remainder of the outstanding debt, 1 cent would be saved, $65 a year on my taxes of my home. I applaud that. I'd much rather save a larger amount. So what I'm asking the city to do is approach the county and get this resolved. I think, Mayor, you put it well. Our heart's in the right place, but our mind isn't always. I think in the case, the heart was in the right place 35 years ago when the fire district was probably set up, when there were 40 years ago, when there were, again, ranches out there, a farmhouse, covering mainly brush fires. Structure fire wasn't as big a deal, right? But now we have subdivisions, large subdivisions that have very well-priced homes, in some cases approaching $1 million. So this is not going to sit well with some folks, but it often feels like those in the unincorporated area are rich folks who want free stuff. So I would like to see them voluntarily do what is necessary. We had a discussion about establishing an HOA. There's other options. They could create an ESD. They could have the county tax them. County can do that under Texas law for public safety reasons. And that money could be diverted. So we could lessen the tax burden on our homeowners and equally share or establish equals distribution across all those that the fire district serves. I have no issue with that. And obviously we've had further discussions as our county is growing, new developments, the favorite everybody likes to talk about, River Rock, right? How will we cover that? It's in the fire district. We have interlocal agreements, complex web of agreements that exist. And I think those are the policy issues that this council is going to have to work out. But in the interim, for the established homes that are out there and being covered, it just seems like it's time, especially now. And as item's been discussed a couple of times, I just want to take this opportunity to bring it up. But again, applaud the city administrator on the budget, on pulling it together. Next year, I'd like to see this done a little earlier, so we're not having the conversation at the end of September. Rather see this somewhere in the middle of September. But appreciate everything the council's doing and the mayor's doing. I support the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Kippett. I appreciate it. Are there any more comments from the public on the public hearing? If not, we will close the public hearing at 8:33. Does anybody need a recess? It's 8:33. We're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. So we'll do that now. Thank you. It is 8:42. We went over the 5 minutes. I apologize. But we are back to get this fun budget stuff going. So, Angela, we are up to item, actually, are we still doing the presentation? Who's doing the presentation? Is it going to be the fire chief? Okay. So there is a presentation. Everyone should have a packet. Do I have one of those? Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. Eddie, you're doing the presentation? Yes. Okay. Eddie, you're up on the merge of con, merge of fire, merge of fire.
Good evening, council. So I'm going to start this presentation with an apology. I wasn't planning on presenting tonight, so if this seems unorganized, it's because it is. All right. In your packets, you should have two separate packets. One that looks like this. This is the PowerPoint presentation that we're obviously not doing. And the ordinance. Should look something like that. It just says ordinance number at the top. Everybody tracking? All right. So, talked to several council members about this in the past. We were talking about doing, when we were kind of hot and heavy on the ambulance thing, we were talking about using emergent con for the medical billing side. Emergent fire is the fire billing side. So basically the way this works is they are a revenue recovery service. So if we go out and we run a call, anything other than a public assist or a medical call, it would get billed to insurance. So say we go to a structure fire, we get homeowners insurance information, and in our report, EmergicCon would go through our report and see what we could bill their insurance company for. This does not go to the homeowner. It goes straight to their insurance company. Basically what it is it's trying to offset the expenses that we have for responding to these calls. There's different levels for different types of calls, things like that, right? They do what's called a soft billing. They submit it to their insurance company. Emergent Fire submits it to the insurance company as the property owner or vehicle owner, whatever the case is. And they deal with all the negotiations with the insurance company. Okay? If it's not paid, it doesn't go to collections. That's what I mean by it's soft billing, right? They deal with all negotiations and everything else. In this process...
Help me understand something real quick. I apologize. So on soft billing, if emergent fire sends a bill, whether it's a car fire, house fire, whatever the emergency response is, if they're not able to come to an agreement with emergency fire to pay the city, whatever that rate would be, it's done. We're not going to start billing the citizen.
No bills directly to the citizen and no collection process, nothing like that. So in this process, it is dealing straight with insurance companies, okay? It's already built into like your homeowner's policy that there's money that we're leaving on the table if we're not claiming this. So it's already built into your insurance policy for auto insurance, for homeowner's insurance, whatever, to assist with the cost of the emergency response. A lot of agencies don't know about this, and that money's being left on the table. So
Eddie, if I can jump in 1 second, just to give you an example, we all know about the recent fire in Rowlett at Sapphire Bay. City of Rowlett is one of the companies that does EmergicCon, and they do the fire billing as well. That city, because of the expenses, they were able to recoup a little over $100,000 from that insurance company for their expenses on that particular fire. So this is the same scenario. It's just the insurance company. Insurance companies, Eddie said, already has this money built in. We're not going after homeowners or anything like that. It's strictly an insurance company. And so many cities now around, Plano, Frisco, you start naming them, they are doing the same process. They're in this fire billing stage along with their EMS billing.
So my previous agency that I was with, I set this up with them 15 years ago with a different company. And we would average somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 a year that we are collecting in revenue that otherwise we wouldn't be pursuing. So in this process, Emergicon has access to our reporting system, right? They're the ones that go through and they say, okay, y'all used oil absorb for a car wreck. They bill for a pound of oil absorb or however much we use, right? They actually go through the report and they're the ones that put together what we are capable of billing for. Now in this process, like I said, there's no expense to the individuals. It's all going through the insurance company. There's also no expense to the fire department or to the city. So the way Emergicon bills is when they submit to the insurance company, they come to an agreement of a dollar amount that the insurance company is going to reimburse the fire department. Emergifire takes a percentage of that dollar amount. Their percentage is 18%. But when you think about it, that 18% is money that we would not be pursuing anyway. So the 18% of us trying to bill for nothing is zero. If they're getting their 18% and we're not having to deal with the logistics, the negotiation, any of the billing aspect of it, it seems like a win-win. So for us, it has a huge return with very little impact on the city. Basically no impact on the city. The only thing that's going to change for us is how we do our reports. So, like I said, you've got the whole PowerPoint presentation here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer what I can. We had a rep that was scheduled to be here tonight, and just because of the scheduling of council meeting, she was going to have to reschedule some family stuff, and I told her I would take care of it.
So that's how Eddie has gotten thrown in, because he had been working with Emergicon on this. And so because of that conflict, that's why he was kind of thrown into the last mix, so he can speak on behalf of everything that he's been working with them on the fire billing side. Myself and Scott Martinez, we started talking to him on the EMS billing side for the future if we ever decide to do that. And so that's how we found out about the fire billing. And Eddie was thrusted into the mist to come speak before you tonight. But again, there's no cost to the city. Their current rate is 18%. If we ever were to switch and go to the EMS billing component as well, then that rate will reduce to 15%. But again, no cost to the city. All we have to do is make sure we train our personnel to gather the right information in our incident reports for them to have access to be able to come in, pull those reports, and then they take care of it from there. We won't have to do any other work.
So being that this is a presentation, there's no action or nothing being signed on this? Am I correct?
Right.
So, okay, so after a presentation, then y'all are just going to come back?
We want to see if council says this is something that we want to pursue, then the next meeting opportunity we'll have, we will bring an ordinance and a contract and agreement with them and their representative to come and speak on that night for council to take action on it.
Okay. Mr. Daggy, that's all.
Well, the question, so actually that was my question, was how long does it take to get these things on ramp? But you just went over that right now.
And to follow up, one of the reasons why is we have a new fee schedule coming in for the fire marshal's office when it comes to plan review, inspections, you name it. Well, they also do billing for that as well on the fee schedule. So we've now made adjustments to our fee schedule, and my understanding that is coming sometime in October. So it's kind of why we made tonight a presentation. If you choose to move forward, the night that we have the fee schedule, this would be brought up too, so you can see the fee schedule on the fire marshal's side of this thing when it comes to fees. Which you should have a copy of that in your packet as well.
So just out of curiosity, what kind of software package is the city going to have to take on to be able to accommodate this, or can we do it with existing resources?
We're using it with our existing ESO reporting software that we currently use now. All we've got to do is get them an access backdoor, and that's all we have to do.
And do we require any training on our end, or do they just handle it?
For us, no, they will handle it. They do this all over. The ESO software that we currently use now, they work with many other agencies that use the same reporting software as we do.
So It's not currently on the agenda for tonight as an action item, just as a presentation, but just to what if y'all decided to approve this and say it was being approved tonight, you have a sample.
No, you just sample.
Sorry. You have an example of the contract. I don't know if it's in y'all's packets, but y'all would be provided with a sample of the contract. You have a sample of the ordinance. And basically, if y'all decided to approve it, it's signing the contract, enacting the ordinance, and then there's nothing else to be adjusted to be able to start this process. Like Chief said, it's using our current reporting system, so there's no software that we have to buy or use or subscribe to or anything like that. Like I said, the only thing that changes on city side, fire department side, is the way we collect information, like on our car wrecks and stuff like that. We currently do not collect auto insurance information. That's a very simple process. Same thing with structure fires, homeowners insurance, things like that. I will say, Emergicon in your PowerPoint packet, it shows how they bill and how they track their billing. I believe it's the 5th of every month. They send us a report that says, hey, these are the things that we're pursuing. This is the status of the things that we're pursuing. So I take that back. There might be a little bit more on Jeff's side with actually tracking what's coming in and what's going out. Not what's going out, but what's coming in. So
Who would be the point of contact over at the fire station? Would it be you
it would
or?
either be me or Chief.
Okay, and then so do they submit you guys back a report?
Yes, sir.
From what I'm reading, it seems like every 5th day of the month.
We will have monthly reports that, along with our fire reporting, we will do the same thing.
Okay, and then it looks like the deposits are made every 15th day of the month.
Correct.
And then, so y'all would always have that, and that would be, I guess, a part of our,
Your financials
we
and
would
fire
have
department
a running
report
total on
on
it.
recovery.
Okay.
Yes, sir, revenue recovery. And again, there's no cost to the city. Even, like I said, we wanted to present this to you. Everybody's got a copy. If there's documents missing, that's my fault. I had some miscommunication with Miss Angela. It's not her fault. It's mine. But I'll be happy to email that out to everybody so you can see an example of the ordinance and you can see the contract so you can review that. And then next council meeting, we would bring it back for discussion and action.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I've just mentioned with these two guys, I'm gonna let Mr. Brewer say something real quick, and then, I mean, I think at this point, my direction would be, get to the next level on this and bring it to the council and let us, take action on it. I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer, but I'll let this close, the presentation close with Mr. Brewer.
Yeah, I just had a question, as it was brought up in the public hearing about outside the city limits and stuff, we would be using this as well.
Correct.
We don't see any conflict with our
No, sir, none of it
contract
over with our
the
current.
county, and, I mean, is it going to be a?
No conflict whatsoever.
Okay.
So also my understanding is that if there is an agency that is currently using a system like Emergifire, so say we do a mutual aid with Roy City, right? We would still submit our report. It would say on there that it's a mutual aid. Well, Emergifire would reach out to Roy City and make sure that there's no conflict there, that we're trying to double bill their insurance.
Right. But with the county contract that we currently have of the 130-some thousand we'll receive, there's no conflict there. This is just secondary additional opportunities for us to be able to, even though we understand that fire departments are an expense to the city, and it's an opportunity maybe to bring in some revenue to help offset some costs.
It seems like the easy way to just deal with that, though, is just simply collect in your own district, right? Because you guys are going to give enough, there's going to be enough over time, over aggregate, it all works out.
That's our primary focus, correct, Fire District 22. We wouldn't, and Emergicon, the representative of fire reporting, they would help make sure, hey, yeah, on this one, we can't go after anything. It would be everything pretty much in our fire district.
Yeah, I'm good. I think just take it to the next level and let's bring it back for us to have their representative here, questions, answers, presentation is good. I mean, it's almost a no-brainer, so I'm good. If y'all are good, we'll close it out so we can start budget talk. Unless y'all got it.
Absolutely. We wanted to be quick so we can move on.
Right.
Sorry,
Thanks,
ladies.
Eddie, for being on the spot. Who was supposed to be the person? What was her name? Don't worry about it. I was just going to embarrass you. You're good. I was just going to embarrass you. You're good.
I'll just look this direction.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
So we are now to Items for discussion and action. Angela, 11.1.
Discuss and consider approving an ordinance amending the current 2023-2024 fiscal year budget, finding municipal purposes, authorizing expenditures, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Conrad. Or actually, well, we need to take a motion on this one.
Okay.
A motion, and then we'll entertain a second. So I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to discuss and consider approving an ordinance amending the current 2023-2024 fiscal year budget, finding municipal purposes, authorizing expenditures, providing for severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
I'll second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, we have discussion open. So Mr. Conrad Hildebrand.
Okay, Mayor and members of the council, this is an exciting time for us. I mean, a sad and a good time. A sad time, we're closing out our current year budget, as was mentioned by the city secretary, and this is kind of the final step in closing out our fiscal year. It's not financially closing it out. We still have bills and other things coming in the month of October. Hopefully, we'll be done with that. And once we're done with that, we'll jump on the audit process that you approved, the engagement letter of that audit process tonight. And they have 180 days to complete the independent audit and report back to the mayor and council. But this is amending the current year's budget. So if you look at what was just handed to you, which is Exhibit A, for this ordinance, it shows all our different funds, revenues by source, what was initially adopted, and what's projected, both in revenues and expenditures. And you'll notice in this year's general fund budget, we had projected revenues. Well, why I say projected, they can't be actual because it's through August of this year, so it doesn't have September's actual numbers in there. So once we get that, it'll turn to an actual. But we used historically what we spent in past September, last year's September, and added that on, and did a few other things to project if we had some major expenditures. But you'll notice on the front page, on the second column, the 2024 projected is revenues of $4.118950 for the FY24 or the FY23-24 that went from October 1, 23 to September 30th of 24 of that amount, the 4.1 million. If you flip the page to the expenditures of that, and same second line, you'll see that the projected expenditures equal out to the 3.605687, with the far right bottom column showing you how much will be in excess of revenues over expenditures that will be zeroed out. All these account items will be zero-based. We use a zero-based budgeting. It'll be zeroed out, and that 613,000 will go into what we call an unrestricted fund balance. And hopefully, in the near future, we'll present to the council and get a council-restricted different fund balances, capital fund balances. But this is going to be rolled into a restricted fund balance, an unrestricted, fund balance. And then the same thing is done for every account. And you can see after that, you can see the public safety and the utility and so this is just cleaning up and finalizing our budget, giving your final say, and so which we do every single year. I mean, it's basically a housekeeping type thing, and the ordinance that you'd approve as was made in the motion to finalize this current year's budget, which officially ends on the 30th.
Mr. Easter, do you have anything on this, sir?
I'm going to
Mr. Brewer? Mr. Day? Mr. Tucker? Back to you then if you have anything, if not. All right, so we've had the motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Show that unanimous. Angela, 11.2, please.
Discuss and consider approving an ordinance of the City of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, approving and adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, providing that expenditures for said fiscal year shall be made in accordance with said budget, appropriating and setting aside the necessary funds out of the general and other revenues for said fiscal year for the maintenance and operation of the various departments and for various activities and improvements of the city, providing a repealing clause, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion on item 11.2.
Make a motion to consider approving item 11.2.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second, so let's open this up for discussion. Back to you, Conrad.
Okay, Mayor, members of the council, and I should say really citywide, and I've said this multiple times throughout, especially throughout the months of July and August and the first part of September. We have transitioned to a software in the cloud, budgeting software, excuse me, and created what you have in front of you, a digital budget book. We've tinkered with a lot of the stuff to make it more readable and the charts and graphs, which I think in the past we didn't have as many. So some people that may not be as fiscally understanding can still look at some of the charts and graphs and get some of the answers that they're looking at pretty easily. We also have background of the city. You've seen all those things. We have a mayor's message. We have mug shots of all the council and the staff, or some of the staff. But in the middle of the document are all the funds and all the specific dollars. We've gone through all this. We have a comprehensive summary on page 35 of the general fund with revenues and expenditures. You can see that the proposed, on page 37 of the budget, the proposed revenues went from what we just talked about, the 4.135950, same number as you just saw on the closing out the last year. It still shows projected or for the year because we haven't closed it out totally, but we feel pretty confident with those numbers. It's 11 actual months plus one, September, which obviously we haven't finished the month, but we really expressed to staff to slow down spending during the month of September and just the normal regular costs of running the building, running the payroll and things like that go through there. So we feel really close with that number, but you'll see that the proposed goes from the 4.1 to a 4.3 in the revenue line item. A couple of things with that, and you'll notice how it jumped from FY23, which when it was at $3 million, and now it's $4 million. Well, we've taken on such things, not just the growth ability and the growth of the city and the increased amount of money, of growth money that comes in, but we've also taken in, just in the past year, solid waste, and that before wasn't in there, and that's $600,000+ a year for those costs, which just comes in and goes out, but it's shown in our financials. So same thing with all the funds that we have. You also saw with and we talked about it last time pretty in-depthly of all the new things that have come to the budget. You also see the salary and benefits, and we broke them down so you could see every single one of the benefits and the cost to the city in the general fund. And so and it goes to as you can see on page 43 of the general fund, of the overall budget, that we have proposed expenditures of 4.316969, balancing the exact amount of projected revenues. Hopefully, and it's always our hopes. And then monthly, you get your financials. So the monthly financials are what's real. I mean, what's actually spent, what's actually brought in, where the budget is our best guess. And we use a lot of things that make it real close, but it's our best guess, which you saw in this year, was $600,000 off. And we always try to conservatively budget the revenues and liberally budget the expenditures. And by so doing, our hope is that revenues exceed expenditures at the end of every year. And that's how, and every year we've tried to do that, and it doesn't always happen that way, but again this year, you saw that, and you just approved that 600,000 excess of revenues from expenditures that will go into our unrestricted fund. And we hope the same, even though we're starting at a balanced budget. We hope that we underestimated revenues and at least got right on the expenditures, and we have excess revenues from expenditures. That was not done that way with our debt service fund. We pay exactly what we have on our amortization schedules for debt service, but it is, with utility, you can see, is very slight. The city operates a sewer, and on page 49, the super operates a sanitary sewer fund. And you can see that there's 3 line items on the revenue and 3 line items for the expenditures, and it's just the cost of doing business. It's what's called a proprietary fund in the public finance world, and so in the general fund is called a governmental fund. And so you have that for the utility fund. We do pull out, as mentioned before, the public safety fund that we've talked about a little bit, and with that public safety fund, we show the revenues and expenditures, and we've talked about it. It's been mentioned from the citizens' pulpit of what we anticipate for that. We have again, start with a summary of overall, and then we go revenues and expenditures. And we're balanced in that, but our balancing line item, as you know, is on page 49, where it's the transfer over. And you can see how much the transfer is going over in the revenues, or in the revenues to pay for the expenditures of the public safety fund. So with that, that's what we've done with all that. We have a glossary in the back. You've looked at all that. We have some things on capital improvements. We've shown you all the new line by line last time of all the added stuff that staff and the different departments have requested, and the things that were approved and currently reside within this balanced budget, and the things that weren't. One of the things that weren't that I wanted to bring up real quickly, and I don't want to be as verbose as before, but because you've been through this, but we suggested an ERP system. Currently, we contract out with all our accounting and our finance work for the city. The auditors kind of like it because of the controls of having various entities looking at our financial documents and evaluating. Instead of 1 or 2 within the city, it gets passed around not only within, but with a contracted accounting firm that does our payroll and does our accounting work. However, we also have had issues, and the council has mentioned that some suggestions of possibly looking at bringing utility billing in-house. That would require a more robust ERP system that, I mean, we don't have one yet now, but we wanted to show you the cost so you could think about it in case you say, you know, let's evaluate whether we want to bring it in so you can start looking at those costs. Because I think sooner or later, I would anticipate, and I'm not going to say hope, but anticipate that the city would bring in-house a lot of the things that they contract out for right now. And it'll be internal, and like when people have issues with utility billing, the buck stops here. They come and drop their stuff in a drop box or up at the front desk, or pay it electronically, or like just to us. So it's not like he said, she said, they said, what? No, it's here. Are we ready for that right now? No, we're not ready for that right now, but we could get ready for that into the future, and wanted you to at least see that and get a feel of that if that's what you want to do into the future. So some of those things were not like tomorrow that we wanted it, but we wanted to make sure you know. We've talked in the past about police forces, and we'll talk in the future of potentially creating funds, restricted funds, for public safety money or road money, so we can start hitting some of these things that really are necessary things when the time's right as the city grows and develops. So we're moving toward a more and more robust budget and overall fiscal nature of our city. You can tell that the budget will look better. This one of the things we took out of this budgeting software was everything that they do is to meet the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. So all their components. So they have everything set up to do it, and say, okay, city, give us all the documentation that fits all these different cycles. We're not quite there, but I believe next year we will be there. And if you look at the cities in the state of Texas that received that GFOA Distinguished Budget Award, we'll be right up there with the high percentage of those cities in the state do not receive this, and we would be one that receives it. So I think it gives you more confidence in what's going on and how we're doing these budgeting. Doesn't change any of the numbers. That's up to you guys to evaluate and look at your long-term vision and say, this is what the city needs and wants. And this is how, and then staff takes it and says, great, we'll take that budget and we're going with it to meet what you said you wanted to do. So with that, that's the budget. And as you know, we talked about it a little bit. The state of Texas requires us to approve a final year budget prior to approving the tax rates. You also can look in here and look at the property tax rate, and we have a graphic for this too, but the property tax revenues for the general fund are projected at $797,000 this year. Oh, I did say that the fire department itself is $1.9 million. So of all the money we take in from everybody in property tax, we don't even pay half of what it costs for the operation of a fire department. What does that tell us? That tells us that we're a growth community. All communities go through that. We have life cycles of our community. And he's saying I'm talking too much, but that's okay. But that life cycle, that growth, we're going to cross a line, so we got to anticipate into the future how we're going to continue services and pay for everything, because growth is really helping us right now. And paying for a lot of our employees and paying for a lot of, as you can tell, property tax and our sales tax is what? And it's based on, sales tax is 600 and something, and it's based on a lot of 380 agreements that we have, because all of it goes to other cities. We pay for other cities around us, all their parks and their salaries and everything else, because none of it stays here. I understand, and I applaud the council that you're actively looking at economic development and commercial development into our city and doing that right, because the timeline moves and we got to get it. But that's something that every city goes through. And so, but as long as you're aware with that, I'll stop with that and give this to you. There's an ordinance in here to pass the FY25, which is their 24 to 25, because our fiscal year is the federal fiscal year, October 1 through September 30th. It's not the federal, it's our fiscal year. October 1 is similar to the federal one. So with that, there's a budget that, or an ordinance to approve approve this budget. And I would lastly, if you have things to change at this late hour, I would hope that potentially you would say, I approve the budget subject to these changes, because we do zero out all of our line items September 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Mr. Easter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Conrad, for that explanation about the general budget and the kind of oversized impact that the fire district seems to have on it. And consistent with what Mr. Kippett mentioned earlier, I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do to try to recover those costs for the fire department elsewhere to try to offset some of these issues.
Right, if you go to the revenues of the fire department, in your budget book, and I can quickly bring you there. Well, I don't need to, I can just tell you what the numbers are. From the county, they give us we earn $127,800 a year. They send us a check and we try to invoice them right first thing in October. So we gain the interest instead of, and that's to do the fire district. Could we go back? There were a couple council members a couple of years ago that it used to be like 50,000, and they went and negotiated with the county and they got it raised. They showed reasons why, and they raised it up. So what was suggested happened and positively affected the city from about $60,000 or $70,000 that we got more because they saw and recognized it. If you look at our dollar bill that we show in there, the county is 3 times the tax rate of property tax rate is what the city is. What are the services? Is the fire district one of them? We could use that potentially as a point of negotiation with them. Is there a way? That would be the way. I don't know if the county's saying, I mean, they listen to this and say, we already pay you $127,000. I mean, they could say that too, but definitely something that we should and could go back and negotiate and tell them the additional benefits that we're doing for that district and the costs associated.
And I'm sure we could go back and look at some of the records to identify what the
Call
overall
volume.
cost impacts are,
Yep.
and the disproportionate aspect of it that we're kind of subsidizing all of this. And as Mr. Kippa said, that I think these folks need to carry their weight on those sorts of things and to be responsible for it. With respect to the fire department, as far as the allocation, is there opportunities to perhaps make some changes in this budget where these allocations are, because there may be some limitations? Can we move money around, let's say from equipment to making sure these guys get their cost of living increases?
The budget is your document. So your ability to do that, I mean, we pride ourselves in having a balanced budget. So, but also we pride ourselves on having a budget that is real and needed. So when I challenge the different departments, when I challenge the fire chief and his department to come up, we start out with what's your dreams? What's that goal to be the best fire department in the whole area, in the whole state of Texas? And what do you need to have that to provide those services? One of the things that these guys are taking the challenges is the whole department soon, and within the next months, will all be paramedic based. Do we run an ambulance? We don't run an ambulance, but these guys show up and can be paramedics on scene. What a huge benefit to our residents. what an astronomical benefit, insurance-wise, to the gentleman that has the heart attack, or the kid that, I mean, different things that they can do at an emergency room, doctors are doing on scene. And then when the ambulance finally gets there, they just shove them in and take them to the hospital. I'm being very
No,
over
I
it,
agree
but I
with-
mean, because the ambulance service is a great service, I don't want to negate any of that. I'm just saying that our guys can, on scene, do a lot of things that otherwise that aren't being done in other places. And so they've taken my recommendation to them to do that and tell me what they want. You'll see another one of the things that didn't get funded is a platform truck, 130 foot or 150 foot, 120 foot.
No, you answered my question.
All right.
And by the way, Chief.
I can talk to you a long time about all these things.
No, but I do want to, that the last presentation, as far as the entrepreneurial spirit that you guys were talking about over here to help offset some of these costs, that's the kind of, I think, innovation and, ownership that I think is very helpful for our community, so I applaud that. But anyways, that was my only question on it.
Yeah, so Mr. Kippett, when he spoke, he spoke of something that's actually very important, and I will say I will get with staff, and we will definitely look into that, because that is money back into the fire department, if I'm understanding that correctly. Mr. Brewer, I apologize. Mr. Easter made a great point, to make sure the department gets the equipment they need, the increases they need, the COLA they need. And I think today I sat down with the chief for probably more than he's seen me in a while, more than I wanted to see him. But we spoke a lot. I spoke with the fire guys that were at the firehouse today as well. And thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Easter, because it's very important, the equipment, right? The equipment they need. And then we were able to figure out a way to get the equipment they need. And I know that's going to go down the line here in a minute, and I apologize. We were also able to find the 3% step raise that they get. And to the comments of Mr. Kibbett and everyone that are wanting to see our fire guys taken care of, we were actually also able to find 3% COLA increase. I challenged at the last hour and actually stood guard at his door and did not allow staff to bother him, Conrad, to make this happen, find a way to make it happen. And we were able to do that by removing some of the items that we felt could get the 2 pieces of equipment that's needed, the step raise and the COLA allowance. So thanks for doing that hard work. I know we'll get down the line, and then I'll let Chief go into more on that. So, Mr. Brewer, sorry to have taken that for a second.
No worries. So it was on the Commissioner's Court that they were going to, I guess, raise their allotment to $157,000. So you already got a $30,000 bonus.
Yeah, our money was going up this year. It was.
Yeah.
Great plan, Mayor, of putting Councilmember Brewer on that. He got us $30,000 straight up.
Yeah, I might take credit for that one. So my question is more about the roads and how much is allotted for road repair. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Is there an emphasis on a little? The roads are a critical infrastructure in the city.
You can't talk a little bit about it. It's got to be a lot.
No, I'll be, but I believe in roads.
Let's be brief and direct. That way we're brief and direct at 9:26.
We did an overall study, and the council approved that a couple of years ago to look at the condition of roads. And then we prioritized those roads based on their condition and ran the roads. We do have, as I think Mr. Tucker said, we have not a whole lot of roads, not millions of hundreds of miles of roads, but we definitely have roads in the city, and they're not in great shape. And so we're working at, we evaluated them, we've worked and we'd like to finish up getting engineer estimates of what they cost on the major, for a potential, some way to fund it, and then funding of availability. I hate to bring up that bond word, but I'm thinking that we're going to have to do that. We also need to discuss it with our representative of the county, because there's a lot of roads that we consider city that are, it goes to the center line of the road, where the city owns to the center line and the county owns to the opposite center line. So you go down to the county and they say, oh, it's the city, and the city, oh, it's a county. And so we need to finalize and correct that and get that solved. But we're hoping to get it to we can get those roads to a place where we have a long-term analysis of those roads and look in year 2, year 5, these are the different products that we're going to put on, from even an oil overlay to a full-blown overlay, but from chip seals to crack seals to chip seals to other type of products that we can put on our roads so we can maintain them for years and years to come. We can get to that point. We don't have so many roads that we can't get to them, but somebody's going to have to bite the bullet. I hate to say this, but sometime to get those roads and say, we're going to get them done and we're going to fix them. Right now, in the last few years, we've been a lot of filling potholes, and we have our guys sometimes out at 4 in the morning to beat the traffic on the roads, filling potholes, and on different days. So we have a good products that we use, but that's just meeting the very minimum. We're fixing Pullen Road today and tomorrow. It's a Band-Aid, but oh my heaven, that was sort of a very emergency, serious, the roads was like this on Pullen Road at certain places. So I know Edwards, I can go on and tell you all the roads that need that help, but it's something that we're definitely looking into, and Mayor Pro Tem Tucker was very instrumental and he's met and done a lot of things with the roads, and love to find different ways to pay for it. All right, my 3 minutes up. Tell you, we have 53,000 in the road line item right now. You could take that 60,000 that we're going to put into the unrestricted. Last year, we went up to 300, and then when I said we have a balanced budget, I was questioned by a council member saying, no, we don't. And because the definition of balance is incoming revenues, incoming and new expenditures. Well, we went and picked a little bit out of that unrestricted to make our budget last year, or current year, of 300,000. It still was a balanced budget. I'll still maintain that, but it was utilizing a little bit of that unrestricted fund balance.
And we don't, I guess my concern is that $55,000 is not enough to do even a minor repair.
Just like just filling potholes and stuff like that around the city. That's about what it will do.
Okay. I know that in talking with you, because I raised it up during the workshop about paying off the debt for this with the excess of reserve funds. I also understand that we have to wait at least till the 10-year mark on the loan, which would be before the next payment is due in February. And we had talked about, you had talked about setting up a capital fund which we could use to apply towards roads if we wanted to use some of those excess reserve funds towards that. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want the public to know that it says 55,000, but at least in my mind, there's going to be quite a bit more in the background that we'll be able to draw from in the future, near future.
Mr. Day.
Why don't you pass me for a moment? I'm still thinking this through.
Mr. Tucker.
I was waiting on you, Paul. No, I'm fine. Going back to fire, I think Lorna Kippen and I worked together a couple of years back when I first got on city council to garnish up another $50,000 from the county, and it was like pulling teeth to get that money out of them. They're very reticent about funding our fire district in any sense, and the fact that perhaps Jerry went and maybe asked them for more, 30,000 is pretty generous on their part. So I wouldn't look to the county to come across and start paying for the ETJ folks that pay probably $1 in $10. We've worked together on this for the past 3 years. I mean, I've beaten this horse to death trying to get more money out of this county, and they're not really ready to donate a whole lot more. But maybe $1 out of $10 that's dedicated to the fire department comes out of the county, and about 42% of the fire calls, roughly, come out of the ETJ. And so, effectively, the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm are subsidizing, those folks in the ETJ. Not that we don't like the folks in the ETJ, but we would like a little bit of fairness on that end. And so, Mr. Kippett has gone into this. And the point we were discussing, I think our fire department was like $1 million or $1.2 million, something along that line. And and we made those pushes to get more money from the county, and they weren't so generous as we would have liked. But now it's the budget for the fire is $1.9 million. I mean, just in a year or two, that's accelerated from 1.2 to 1.9. That's extremely significant. And we've talked in the past about maybe creating a fire district. I think it's an ESD, am I correct? Emergency Service District? And wherein, and Mark was essentially proposing that. And I think that we need to seriously start to consider that and talk to the county and say, hey, there's no fairness in this mechanism where we get reimbursement from you on a yearly basis. It's not covering our expenses, and we're still providing a high-end service for the folks both in the city, but for 42% of the folks in the ETJ that are receiving those services. So I think that should be the next step for us to seriously start considering an ESD, because in that schematic, and it would be that there would be equivalency in terms of cost distribution. To go into that, and I'd have to have the discussion with you, I forget how the mechanism is when it comes to governance on that. So that would be a point of concern for me, because I'm not prepared to necessarily turn over this fire department that we've created to an ESD without some kind of control over that. So that would be a point of discussion and some more information.
Absolutely. So it would be, the county would be part of the ESD. So the county would actually put together a ESD board, a committee, or council, as this saying, they would manage those funds, if you chose to do it for all of Fire District 22.
I think it's worth more conversation, since this is proportionally getting almost geometrically more expensive on a yearly basis. So I think we need to delve in that, maybe put a committee together of a couple city council people and talk to you more specifically to that point, and then have those conversations with the county as well.
I will let you know it's been a topic of conversation in our fire chiefs meetings.
Okay.
So we're starting to.
Everybody's realizing the problem that they're inheriting from the antiquated system that we're now supporting. Okay, that sounds good. With continuing on with the fire department, I noticed some allocations towards some equipment that I was kind of in disagreement with. I would concur with Mike, Councilman Easter, that I think we need to start weighing some funds a little bit more towards salary. I had conversations with some of the fire guys, and my finding was that I think we need to start looking. I know we use the PIC 6, which are the 6 cities within this Rockwell County, to determine salary schedules, and I think we're the lowest of that. But in thinking about this, I believe that some of these fire people, if they're looking for another opportunity, are probably traveling much further. I know I've encountered at least one resident that travels up to Sherman for a higher pay and salary. So I think we need to go back, and maybe if we need to amend this budget where those allocations from equipment, sorry, Chief, to maybe salary enhancement, I would certainly be looking at that if I'm to vote positively for this budget at this point in time.
Back to you, Mr. Day.
Yeah, I was actually really happy. Most of the comments here I'm in total agreement with. I was very happy to hear that there was a COLA adjustment that was budgeted in, looks like for everybody in the city, correct? Just under 4%, 3.9. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thrilled to see that. I'm absolutely thrilled to see that. The other comment, I was absolutely extremely happy to hear what Mr. Kippett's recommendation was. I have never really gotten into that part of that. Mr. Kippett wants to follow it up with an email. I would eagerly love to read that and see what he's got on this. This is something that I haven't dug into a whole lot. Just out of curiosity, those that are doing it, and I guess it's Mr. Brewer that was looking at negotiating the county's contribution with respect to fire service. Who is the county negotiator for that? Who's the one that actually makes the determination? Does that come from commissioners?
There wasn't any negotiations. This year, Commissioner Stacy had presented to the Commissioners Court to increase it to a total now of 400,000.
So Commissioner Stacy is the one that...
He got the increase to 400,000, which...
Yes. I was not involved in a negotiation with the county.
My understanding.
I was just pointing out that I saw on the county commissioner's court today, they passed. And
correct.
it passed with a $30,000.
So about a month and a half ago, we had another meeting and talking about the calls. And 3 months ago, I had sent the calls volume or the call reports we had in the county. And then a month ago, we had a meeting to where Commissioner Stacy came out to our fire chiefs meeting and explained to us the little bit of increase that he's pushing now. And so he pushed to get it to 400,000, which now has caused ours to go up to about, I think, the 150-something mark, somewhere right around there. 157, I think.
So what seems to, just from your experience, I'm just trying to be able to project this, from your experience, what motivates the increases? Just an increase in their budget generally? Is that what they're doing? Or is there what motivates them to give the city money is what I'm trying to figure out.
I know speaking with Commissioner Stacy, he said he sees the deficit, so he wanted to see about increasing that fund, and so he pushed and got the approval to increase it to 400,000. He's kind of taking it on. Commissioner Bailey used to be the ringleader when it comes to the county contracts, and I think Commissioner Stacy is looking to throw his name in the hat to take that over now and start working with the cities and the fire chiefs and having some discussions on what the future looks like.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And then with respect to another point that was brought up a little earlier, and I just want to make sure I have these things as clarifying points before I kind of come to some conclusion, that we have the debt, basically the loan against the building we're in right now. That's been brought up. It's actually very interesting, but my understanding is that the current interest rate being paid to service that debt, do we actually know what that is right now?
Every year it's a different bond, so it goes somewhere between 2 and 4.5% as we go through the 20 years.
I think it's going into the 3% era now. It started out at 2. It'll top out at 4. If we pay it off over the course of 10 years, the remaining on the loan, we'll have saved $200,000 in interest.
So the other question then is that would be paid for through reserve funds, and what are we getting on deposit for that reserve fund? What are we receiving in terms of the return?
We have, well, as we mentioned before, the state requires every 2 years to be trained in investment training, and the city has to develop an investment training policy, which we have. The number one item that we look at in investing is safety, and second is liquidity, which is, and getting a return on it is like fourth or fifth. So we're just like opposite of a private sector. We protect the residents' money that we invest, and we keep it safe, and then it has to be liquid to use it. So the yield comes 4 or 5 out of the whole equation. So I think right now, overall, it's in a variety of different areas, a little over 5%. I mean, we just have, we don't go a term longer than 3 years. We don't go, I mean, everything is probably opposite of what you'd think about for a private sector trying to, that you'd show more risk. We don't show risk, a very, very minimal risk in the investment process. But I think we're about 5% in most of our different areas where we're have investments. So it's 1 to 2% over what we're paying there.
Like in a, almost like a federal, like a federal money market fund that's investing in
Things like
very
that.
short term,
Yep.
rotating paper. Okay. No, that's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Chief, I'll throw it back to you if you have anything. So, okay, so we've had the motion, we've had the second. So, all those.
I have a last question, and
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that if we go ahead and approve this, is there something in the ordinance that you have to say that you want to have the ability to amend the budget later on, or you can just approve it as it is? Okay, so we can just approve this as it is, and then during the year, we can amend it as needed.
It is very, very common.
So, yeah, Councilmember Tucker, we just amended our budget right now. You did it tonight.
yep.
You could do that once a month if you wanted.
Thank you for that flexibility and liberties. Thank you.
Okay, so we've had the motion, we've had the second. So all those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Show that unanimous. Angela, item 11.3, please.
Discuss and consider approving an ordinance of the City of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, levying ad valorem taxes for the tax year 2024 at a rate of 0.096256 per $100, assessed valuation on all taxable property within the corporate limits of the City of McLendon-Chisholm as of January 1st, 2025. The said tax rate having a maintenance and operations component and a debt service together with penalties and interest, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to move that we consider approving an ordinance of the City of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, levying ad valorem taxes for the tax year at a rate of 0.0898976 per $100, assessed valuation on all taxable properties within the corporate limits of the City of McLendon-Chisholm as of January 1st, 2021. That said tax rate having a maintenance and operations component and a debt service together with penalties and interest, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
We've had a motion. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that. Changing the rate. So I'll second it for the discussion, purposes of the discussion.
Yes, so again, a motion and a second isn't an approval. It is just to allow us to be able to talk about it, as Mr. Tucker said. So, back to you, Conrad.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The city staff suggests, as was read by the ordinance, of a voter-approved rate of 0.096256, which is what the budget is balanced on. If you choose to vote at the no new revenue rate, you'll have to take out, without doing the formula analysis and stuff, right the second, which, but I can get it to you, but around $60,000 to $70,000 you need to pull out to make it balance, at least. So, or you have an ordinance here. I mean, you could scratch out the one number and put the no new revenue, or you could leave that there. I just also wanted to real quickly state on page 25 of 26 in that ordinance, it's written that we have to say what the M&O or the maintenance and operation portion of that is, and that would be .084468. That's equivalent to $796,891. And section 4, which would be the INS, or the interest of sinking, or the debt service rate, which will stay the same no matter what you do with the percentage. It will stay at .011788, or $111,211, which constitutes our interest and sinking rate.
Mr. Easter,
I'll pass on this.
Mr. Brewer.
I'll pass.
Mr. Day.
Yes, the rate that is being suggested represents a tax or the no new revenue rate. I was committed to that from the very beginning. I've remained committed to it, and we're going to. That's why I sent the motion. I think that this is the right way to go. I think that the amount of money that is being talked about in terms of the amount we'd have to cut is actually very easily found. I'm not worried about it having a deleterious impact on the city.
Mr. Tucker.
You know, I think this has opened up a whole new world for me a little bit, and I'm almost in concurrence, still on the edge with this one, but, you know, a $60,000 or $70,000 need from a transfer from the general fund, I'm not opposed to. I know that last year, considering we were working at a lower rate as well, we had excess revenues of $700,000. This year, we have, apparently from the recent conversation, we have excess of $600,000. So within the past 2 years, we have $1.3 million, if my math is right, in excess. And so to drop this to a lower rate, I'm not adverse to, considering that I think we could take this money out of the general fund and make that transfer to compensate for making this a balanced budget.
Mr. Mayor, can I say a quick thing? I tried to express it a little.
To get on the calculator, so go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I tried to express it in the other. We're living on growth money right now. There'll be a time where we'll have to live on property tax and or sale or something. And we are 3 times lower than any city in the Rockwell County and one of the bottom 5% of the entire state of Texas. That could be a good, bad, or ugly, I mean, whatever it is. But there'll be a time that potentially you're kicking the ball into the future where you'll have a council that'll say, just to survive, we need to raise rates 30%. Or I mean, I made that up. But I mean, a higher percentage. We were 13% not too long ago, and now we're at 9.5%, and now we're at, I mean, proposed to be down. All I'm trying to do is help run the city the best we can. But we are the lowest in all the county by 3 times, and whether that's, like I said, that could be a good thing. But it definitely, to fund the projects that you want to have, you see done and to run the city, it takes some money, and that growth will go away. And then, so it's not balanced by the property tax. So we can lower it, and the property tax will take care of it. We're doing fine. We have 600 additional. Well, we have 600 additional because of franchise fees from people growing and from development charges and other things like that. That is helping our budget dramatically right now. Those will end sometime. When that will be, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, I don't know. But those will slow down, and then you'll definitely have some decisions to make. Especially if you keep giving people, I mean, I'm saying increases or whatever, that'll be real hard to pull back. And you may not have the funds to do it. So I don't want to fight against it. It's your choice. It's 100% your choice. I just want you to be informed of some of these things that may happen.
Mr. Mayor, just very briefly, if Councilmember Day could not amend, but rephrase his motion, 2605B is very, very specific. I mean, it uses quotes and everything on, I move the property tax rate of, 0.08, whatever he said, is going to be it used to be with the 092656 was going to be 8.4% increase. So we need to figure out what that percentage increase is because it's very specific in the tax code.
We need to do that before any further discussion, I'm assuming.
I would recommend a yes, sir, if we can do the quick math on whatever that percentage would be.
And can somebody provide me the exact text that needs to be read for that purpose?
I wrote down the motion of, apparently Mr. Easter didn't have what it took to get the job done, so Councilmember Day, it's up to you.
And who's going to give us that number? Or the one that I have here? Is that the one you want me to use?
Just obviously you replace the 0.08 instead of the 09. It's not going to be 8.4%. So I don't know what that would be.
Which is effectively...
Right, everything was calculated on the 092656 number, so I don't know what it would be calculated.
Off of the dollar amount in my head, I'm just trying to do this fast. We're talking $30 a year per household, so $2.50 a month. I'm doing quick math in my head. Is that about what we're talking about here? $2.50 a month per house with this change? I mean, I'm just trying to do it in my head because these are the things that, when we have to make sure we're doing these things. We're trying to grow economically. We want companies to take us serious on all levels of things, budget being one of them. When we have developers that are doing commercial development in front of us, and over $2.50 a month per household, I just make sure we're strong on that argument is all I'm gonna echo while we're waiting on the percentage.
Sorry, just give me a few minutes.
I can also fill in a little bit. We currently subsidize through sales tax, which we have very little sales tax, residents' property taxes. The city gets 2% of the 8.25% available for sales tax, and 0.5 of that 2% goes to subsidize property tax for our residents. That was done back in 2012 and stays in existence. That equates to about $200,000 of our current year's sales tax.
So, and also being that we're still 75% undeveloped. I mean, we have a lot of development that's coming. We have, and I know we talk about having a DPS, we talk about having police, we talk about when we start cutting this little bit.
One moment while I go and confer with staff. Mr. Mayor, just one quick moment to confer with staff. Okay.
I'm just going to take us a 5-minute recess so we can do math. 9:56.